One, we're on. Hey, welcome back, and Merry Christmas Eve to all you weekend warriors. I know not all of you celebrate it, but we're doing a Sunday stream just like we would always do. As always, I am your host El Chizo, and tonight I am joined once again by our new host.
Goldman.
Uh, so guys, remember, Goldman does computer videos and some Skyrim Let's Plays and all kinds of cool stuff on his channel. Go check him out. Now tonight we're going to be talking about a toy line that a lot of us had as kids, at least in one form or another. We're going to be talking about Bionicle. Now, I actually wanted to go over a little bit about how Bionicle became a thing before we really got into it. So, long time ago, Lego launched this new building system called Technic, which was great for building really technical stuff, bulldozers and whatnot.
Gears and they had the little gear things, and you put the little pins that go in the gear, and actually have the information on. But
Well,
they still use
they had
or,
mechanical aspects to them, yeah.
they did.
Then they decided we need to find a way to make this appeal to kids more. So they came up with the Robo Slicers, which had big rubberized arms and threw a plastic disc. And this design would later be used in Bionicle. Now, the Slicers had their own lore and everything, and I'll let you all go look into that. But essentially, the original plan was to create a new Technic hero series every year. So after the Robo Slicers, it was supposed to be the Robo Riders, mechanical motorcycles, but that was really quickly overtaken by Bionicle. And there was a whole story about that, about them being like voodoo warriors and whatnot, but that whole idea was dropped. And so, but they decided to keep the tribal idea, but instead of going with voodoo, or they still went with like an island culture. Which voodoo was not an island culture. It was either voodoo or it was very loosely based on Hawaiian culture, but I think they took a different route and decided to go with general Maori and Polynesian uh, for Bionicle. And you'll find that actually the names of all the original characters, including the Toa, Matanui, the bad guy known as Makuta, even the ranks of the different characters are all based on Maori terms. And there's a little bit of history behind that we'll get into later. But the reason they wanted to go with Maori culture is because there's something called kanohi, or sacred masks, and they wanted to employ that.
Embedded into them.
Yep. See, the original design before Bionicle, they had heads that were designed to come off very easily. Now, anyone who's played with the original Bionicles remembers that gear function in their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
That was used, and the whole idea was there was a game to knock the other guy's head off. But they found that kids were not as happy about knocking their friend or breaking their friend's toy. So they decided, okay, we'll just make it masks. And that's how we ended up with the whole mask gimmick for Bionicle. Now, as far as lore goes, like I said, it's based on Maori culture, although not necessarily based on Maori legend. As a matter of fact, they got into a bit of trouble because there used to be little Bionicles you could get with Happy Meals. They were about that big,
and
they had little rubbery arms.
They made 6 of them.
Yeah, they made 6 of them.
Yep.
And they called these the Tohunga, which actually got them in big trouble with the Maori people, because these were supposed to be villagers in the Bionicle lore, but the word Tohunga in Maori culture actually means elder or wise man, and they didn't want, the rank to be confused. So they agreed to rename them the Matoran. And the Matoran became the generic villagers of the Bionicle universe. And then, of course, there were other small characters created, like the Turaga, the village leaders. Um, and there was a whole huge thing on the story, starting from when they landed on Matanui all the way up to where the story supposedly ended the first time. But here's the thing: a lot of you who are Lego fans will probably also recognize, the whole elemental hero theme from Bionicle in Ninjago.
Hmm.
Uh, Goldman, you've probably heard of the Ninjago toy line.
Yeah. Hmm. They made a game out recently on Steam too.
Pretty much, yeah. And you'll find that certain story elements always tend to repeat themselves. A
Yeah.
group of heroes with elemental powers come together to defeat a Dark Lord. Um, Same story over and over again. You've probably heard it 1,000 times, but it's a good story base,
Hmm.
and you can do something incredibly different with it each time. Now, I've done enough rambling, so we're going to talk a little bit about the kits we had growing up. I had practically all of them, but I know Goldman had a smaller amount than me. So
Do you have some to
why don't we
show?
go over the ones you had?
Do you have some to show?
None that are actually still built. I keep them in I keep all the pieces in a drawer right next to
Oh,
me.
yeah, because I don't have any to show. Because I don't actually have any toys anymore. Um, because
Oh,
I
you see,
didn't know I was
that's where
gonna
we
be making
differ. I'm a
stuff like
huge
this.
toy nerd.
Yeah, because I didn't know I was gonna be making stuff like this. The only things I have are my Pokemon cards to show, because those are collectibles. But I don't have any other stuff like Lego stuff, because now Lego things are expensive now. Some of them,
Yeah, they're getting there.
it's ridiculous. I looked up some prices of these collectible Bionicles, and some go for as much as like $60 for a set.
Yep,
It's insane.
those must be the Titan sets.
Yes. Um. Let's see.
So he's doing a little research for us right now, looking into it.
Yeah. Um. Let's see. Where were they?
So while he's doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about who actually got into it during the second or the third wave when they brought in the Metro Nui stuff. And as a kid, I really loved building with Legos and Bionicle and stuff. Normally, huge kits that would take a kid my age, an entire afternoon to build or a day, actually took only an hour or so because Lego is really good at laying out the instructions for their kits
Mhm.
and would do all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was loads of fun.
Yeah. This one I found was which is I was surprised. Um, the Mac Muaka. Really lousy at pronunciation.
Oh, the Muwaka.
Tiger Right, the Tiger Right. It started at $60. It has 600, and it was
Yeah, the
really
Muwaka was a really desired set when it came out.
well. It looks like because these masks are the things that makes it valuable is the mask, which I didn't know.
Oh yeah, so the masks at the time had different codes in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I didn't know, which is interesting. And so,
Yeah, the masks were the original collectible gimmick for it.
mm-hmm.
Switched over to the Kanoka discs in the Bionicle Metro Nui, or the Bionicle Metro. and then you could join the Kanoka Club, which is now defunct.
Yeah, they're still making Bionicle like episodes.
Oh yeah,
They,
that's for
they
that
have
was for the reboot.
that was 2016. That I'm not. I think they said they're not working on. They didn't make any for 2017. Because of I'm not sure why, but they didn't make anything for 2017 Bionicle stuff regarding to like TV series or movies or I mean.
Yeah, I think they only really brought Bionicle back as a test run
Mhm.
because they switched the basis of the culture that they were working from. Instead of going with Maori culture, I believe they went with Southern American, the Southern American peoples. You know, like the Mayans and the Incans, and
Yeah. I've never had a Bionicle with that had vehicles, which I didn't know they had vehicles. Well, I knew they had vehicles, but
oh yeah, they've
I
had
never
those for a
had
while since
I've
the
never had one with a vehicle because those started
they've had
they
that
started
since
in
Toa Takanuva.
2000. They started in 2008. The
Actually, they went for a little bit longer than that.
I said that's when they started to do it.
Well,
July 2000.
actually, it goes back a little bit further, back to Toa Takanuva.
What year is that?
He was one of the second in the range, or he was part of the second wave, the Toa Nuva. He was the Toa of Light.
Oh, okay. They made a movie about that, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They made a movie, Bionicle: The Mask of Light.
Yep.
Um, so they had a vehicle for him. They've actually had a few vehicles because they had the Boxor mech suit for one of the Matoran.
What was your favorite Bionicle when you collected?
Oh, it would have to have been. I was a huge sucker for the Wind Toa because green is my favorite color. So like Liwa, Lewa Nuva. It's Liwa, Lewa, or Lua, depending on who you're talking to. I always
Mhm.
called it Liwa in my head. Um. Anyway, so the wind. I also liked Moktau.
Yeah.
Oh, Assassin's kicking in. Sorry I'm late. YouTube is being slow and your live stream is buffering a lot. Yeah, it's weird. I'm hosting and the weather's been weird where I am.
Yeah. Well, that can affect it. I didn't have my YouTube channel. That's why you haven't seen video uploads because I've had issues.
Yeah. So where were we? Favorite toys collecting when you were collecting. If I remember, you said you had
I
one of
had
the
one of
Fire
the
Toa.
yeah one of the disc the McDonald's toy, one of the McDonald's disc toy Biomicles, uh, which was like 2001. I guess
Yep,
that's
that.
when I first started.
Yeah, that's when they were called Tahunga.
Yeah.
Before the Maori, one of the Maori cultural leaders actually had to say, "Hey, you need to change this."
Yeah.
Um, so if I also recall, you had one that you said had a sword, a flaming sword.
Yes. Yep.
Now, can you describe what the mask looked like to me? Okay, we'll play a game here because there's only so many characters that have this feature.
Yeah.
Look up an image of Bionicle Toa Tahu and tell me if any of the images that come up are the ones you had.
Well, the one I'm looking at has, I think this is it. It has basically, it was from Bionicle 2001 promotional poster. It has a flaming sword, red mask, and like a gun, like with two black. Um,
Okay, can you show me that real quick?
yeah,
That is Tahu, and that's not a gun, that's his hand.
that's his hand then. Okay,
Yeah,
claws.
the original Toa, like if they had a hand, it only had 2 fingers on it. They were spocking it all the way.
Yeah. Um, and this, I think this is an open source. I hope.
But yeah, Tahu, he was like the main character practically. He was the leader of the original group. He was the hothead. He was the one who's like, everything I do is the right way to do things. Uh, and he was a fan favorite actually, just because he was the red one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just got one of Bionicles just because I wanted one.
Yeah, well, you got a good one.
Apparently
Um,
so.
I actually have the original Liwa in its canister somewhere around here. I can't find it though.
Unopened.
No, it's opened. I built it, but it's in its canister. It's got most
Yeah,
of the original parts.
that's
I'm gonna,
impressive.
yeah. I do really like. Oh, Assassin says he can't watch, so he says Merry Christmas, and uh, he's sorry he can't keep watching. Well, thanks, Assassin. It's great that you tried anyway. We'll see you some other time then. Anyway, on the subject of collections, I have had most of the kits, at least most of the Toa, at one point or another. Um, so I was there for the whole thing. I never had a Bullrock, which is one that I've always wanted. The Bullrock were the ones that transformed into little rolling balls.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah,
You
they were
can
really
they pop
desired.
out. They pop out, and then you can push them back in and turn into ball.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the spring-loaded gimmick with their necks so that they could play the mask game.
Yep, I totally remember those. They
Oh, they
actually
were
look
a huge deal too.
something similar to. What was it? Yeah, so they they stopped making Broncos in 2010, and then they
Brought it back for a
came
brief
back in
stint.
2014, and then
And then they canceled
2015
them
was
again.
discontinued. Oh no, no, new sets were produced for 2015. The Return Broncos, and then discontinued in 2017.
Yeah, unfortunately, without the huge like big mysticism that the original one had,
Mm-hmm.
everything way early on, which I think was what killed it. Because the reason I liked it as a kid is because there was so much left undefined. You had to pick up a book to get the lore.
Mm-hmm. Which I never read the lore of it, so
Uh,
obviously.
oh yeah, the books are awesome. The comics are fun. Um, surprisingly, what I liked about Bionicle is the story kept getting darker and darker as it went on. So it felt like the story was growing up with me. As I got older and I was able to comprehend grittier stuff,
Hmm.
it changed with my tastes. So it kept me interested until I was like 15. And I miss it sometimes. I miss the community and how when like Bionicle was still around, it was just a buzz of activity. Everyone was making their own mocks called or MOCs, known as my original characters,
Hmm.
and everyone was coming up with these awesome stories, and there were all these great games coming out. I remember a game called a third-person shooter called Bionicle Heroes, which focused on the Voya Nui arc, where you had the Bionicle Toa and Nika and the Paraka,
Hmm.
which you probably don't remember because it was later in the story. Um, but that's when they started the trend of releasing. Actually, that was when they started picking the trend up again of releasing a major villain, one major villain for every one Toa. Like the Borak, they weren't really that big. I mean, the Borak Hall, yeah, there was a major villain. But then in Metro Nui, they just had the Vaki, which weren't that major. They were grunts. Same thing with uh, the uh, the Bionicle Hordika vein, where they had the Visorak, which were the spider creatures.
Hmm.
So when the Voyanui arc came around and Toa and Nika came out, they released the Paraka, each one being a major character with a distinct personality, making all of them desirable to collect.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm looking at like for 2001 set is like it's over 20, and then 2002
Yeah, the Bionicle sets
somewhere.
are desired
It,
now.
it's, yeah, it's ridiculous, and they continue on, and they even have comics and
Oh yeah, the comics were a good read.
yeah.
I would recommend picking them up if you ever get the chance.
Yeah, I've read some comics, so I am into comics. And, they were made the sets all the way till 2016. So they made oh, yeah, they didn't make any sets in 2000 and for that year. Um,
Yeah, see, Bionicle has had a lot of ups and downs. Bionicle Stars was where they originally canceled it,
hmm.
and really a missed opportunity. They could have gone huge and gone with
What?
this huge, elaborate set, but instead they had these little 5-piece
Mm,
collector's kits with a gold piece of armor each. It really wasn't that great a sell.
yeah.
Oh, we just got a
Um.
new subscriber, Planet K-pop. Thank you for subscribing.
Oh, cool.
Um, I would say, well, we got another 10 minutes we got to fill. Um, so why don't we fill that with sort of an open Q&A? We'll do it. We're doing a short stream tonight because it's Christmas Eve. We know y'all got stuff you want to do.
Hmm.
Um, so why don't we take this opportunity just Team Bionicle? And I believe at some point, Goldman, you wanted to talk about troubleshooting with computers. Do you have like a little 10-minute thing that you can give us to give us an abbreviated
Well,
idea? And we'll,
I was gonna go with your computer because I have all like I can actually show you which each component, like for maybe you're hooking up some parts wrong. Because if it's a power supply, which has a lot of different components, and all power supplies have the same basic concept. This is an ATX power supply, which is just this the standard power supply has been standard since I think 2007, 8.
I actually went with a power supply that had that gave out a little bit more than what my system required. Not much, but a little.
Yes, that which it should be. Actually, it should give out because whatever most systems, if modern systems, do you know your CPU? I mean yeah, CPU type.
I did, and I forgot it because I haven't looked inside my
Because I know it's
computer
an
in months.
AMD.
Let me just check something real quick.
Yeah.
Give me a minute while the page loads. Okay. Man. Okay, sign in. Minute.
What wattage does your power supply have?
500 watts.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be enough for most. For a GTX 1050, even GTX 1050 Ti is perfect. Because if you have an AMD CPU, which they are low, very very low on power consumption, so 500 watts is.
Yeah, my power supply. I
You
used
could
a
probably
calculator and it
actually
said that my.
you could probably gotten a 450-watt one, to tell you the truth, and you still would have had enough because you could, if it's an older model CPU type, unless it's yeah, because the AMD versions for the AMD CPUs, they have way better power management than Intel side, and that's not opinion. That's based off fact. I mean, you could go on PC Part Picker and look at comparison of Intel CPUs versus AMD CPUs, and they're way lower. So,
Proton says, "Oh, what are we talking about?" Well, we're just tying up the stream with some computer questions. So yeah, from what I understand, my power requirements for my computer are actually only 250 watts. So I went with 500 watts, which is roughly twice the amount.
yeah.
Because I figured I might need more power than it requires at some point.
That would be correct. Because if you're gonna be planning on upgrading to a stronger GPU card, which requires more power than a CPU, because especially if you're overclocking, because for GPUs they could easily overclock maybe by 50 to 100 watts more than what they start at. GTX 1080 Ti, which I believe. Let me see.
Okay, I got a question for you. What would you say is the best, good quality, we'll call it mid-range graphics card by MSI? Because I'm almost certain if I get an MSI graphics card, it will be compatible with the MSI motherboard.
Well, I highly, highly doubt it's based off the company. It's very rare. You can put an Asus graphics card onto an MSI motherboard.
I know. I think what it might have just been is like I got sort of a low range NVIDIA one, and it didn't exactly have the components that the MSI said it was compatible with. Even though the better cards in that range do.
Here's the thing. Let me ask you this: are you going to be overclocking?
Probably not. Mostly, I'm going to be using this for light gaming and video editing.
Okay. How much does your motherboard cost? I'm just curious.
$800.
800. Your motherboard?
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure that's not your graphics card? Because I've never seen a motherboard
Wait,
that.
not 800. I'm thinking the total price. The
Yeah.
motherboard was like, I want to say almost 200.
Ooh, that's an overclocker. I can
Yeah,
tell you
it
right
does
now,
take.
the price of that range is
It does
an
take. It
overclocker.
does. Yeah, it does take an overclock very easily. It actually has a specific place to short for
Mm-hmm.
overclocking.
It has two CPU power supply pins on it. Um, so what that actually helps it for overclocking. You can just plug in one CPU power supply pins because since you're not overclocking. And um, so yeah, you if you're not planning to overclock ever, which if you've never done it, it can actually take a toll on the CPU lifespan. So if you're worried, if you want your PC to last a long time, and and it, and if your case, if you don't have a big enough case, like my case is huge. Um, this is, I mean, this is how big it is. Like the box came in from the floor, so it's about this is an 8TX case that I have, which is 22 inches. So if you have an M8X, then that's gonna be anywhere between 17 to 20 inches. Um, that could be an issue involving the overclocking because you need good airflow in your case for overclocking. So, because that could also damage your CPU.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't plan on overclocking it anytime soon.
Okay, then you should be fine. I mean, because you also need a CPU fan.
Yeah, I do have a CPU fan. It's I've got the cooling paste on and everything.
Thermal paste, yeah.
And I did it right. A lot for some reason, idiots like to put that right on the pins.
The CPU,
Like of the CPU, yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
It's, for
Yeah,
some
you put
reason,
it
they
on
think
the.
it's like a glue.
No,
I put like a rice-sized grain.
that's about that's actually correct. It should be like a pea size. Um, but right size will be okay since you're not overclocking. It also depends on the how big your CPU back the CPU block is.
Oh,
So
it's not
it can
huge.
be
It's like
bigger ones. Yeah, it's pretty big. Um, so I'll show you the website I'm on, just for you to actually have an idea of what I'm look where I'm getting my information, and it's very helpful. So you build your system, and it'll actually just doing random. And if you're too lazy, it even has like pre-built one for you. So if you wanted to pre-built one, you could do that and upgrade from that, like add your own. So that's the website I'm actually using, and that's the website I used to build the PC. They actually do check compatibility and all that, which is nice.
so it's like PC part picker.
Yeah, PC Part Picker. It's really helpful for people who've never done building.
I'll have to use that as a resource from now on.
Yeah, just type in PC Part Picker and it should be the very top.
Well, what
Um,
I'm thinking is next week, or like the next time you're able to come on board,
mhm.
we'll try to organize a tech talk.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
We'll dig that one up out of the bottom of the bin, and we'll start doing that again.
All right. Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we're out of time. But thank you everyone who tuned in. Thank you thank you to the new subscriber. As always, I've been El Chiz Reviews. I do toy reviews, gamepad reviews, and candy reviews. And we have Goldman here who does computer building stuff, let's plays. Go check him out for sure. Remember to check the Weekend Dojo out on Twitter. That's at weekend_dojo. I will try my damnedest to make sure that I put a link in the description next time. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later, Weekend Warriors. Have a nice holiday.